Welcome to a world with limitless possibilities. A world where pain and suffering are matched only by the sounds of those who endure it. Welcome to your nightmare.
Welcome to your nightmare.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Nightmare. For tonight's tale, we're going to continue our journey with Frank as he discovers more about his grandfather's barbaric crimes. Written by Middle Eye 882 on Reddit Tales from the Creeps. When my grandfather was executed, my phone was taken once again, and I was escorted down a long hallway by a lanky guard with a blank face. His eyes seemed almost glazed over, and he wouldn't make eye contact with me. Not that I'd imagine he'd want to, but the coldness of his demeanor only lent to the growing dread I'd felt in my stomach. He moved in a rigid march that had no doubt been drilled into him from years on the job, making no extra movements except to scratch his neck. After several turns and steel doors, I was led into the observation room for the execution. There was an array of folding chairs placed before a glass window. On the other side was the chair, in all its brutal glory, sitting quietly and patiently for its next appointment. It was gut-wrenching to see, even if I believed my grandfather deserved it. The thought of the volts convulsing through my own head made me dizzy as I sat down and waited for the appointed time. While I was sitting there, it dawned on me that I wouldn't be the only viewer. The victims' families, the investigators, surely they'd arrive too. And I'd be left as the stranger in the room. I was the grandson of a man who brutally murdered their loved ones. However, as I watched the clock inside the execution room, and counted down the minutes as they drew near, no one else came. There was only the guard and me. He stood at his post by the door and gazed on with a 1,000-yard stare and never broke eye contact with the imaginary horizon. In anticipation of someone's arrival, I almost missed when the clock struck 6, and my grandfather was led into the room. He was wearing his jumpsuit, but this time, without the full-body cuffs. He moved as innocently as a lamb to an altar, calm the entire way, and with a noble dignity he didn't deserve. My chest turned as his escorts restrained him to the chair and placed the contraption on his head. A priest was in the room as well, reading a passage that was barely audible to me, but that my grandfather seemed to mouth word for word. Then, one of the executioners, resolute in his blue uniform, stepped forward and gave some legal spiel about his crimes and the execution thereof. Just like the guard in my room, he was near robotic in his delivery. Finally, he asked, "Does the condemned have any final remarks?" The priest, confused, tried to say something about him requiring the last rites before his death, and that it had been allowed by both the governor and the warden of the prison upon his execution. The guard didn't even look at the priest. Instead, he said, again in the same tone, "Does the condemned have any final remarks?" My grandfather, full of serenity, locked eyes with me. His stare burned me. "Go home, Frank. There's something in the woods you need to see. I wasn't brave enough to show you then. I didn't realize how little time we had. Go back home, Frankie, and see it. Then you'll understand." He paused a brief moment before saying, "I love you." The hood was dropped over his eyes, and nods were exchanged between the two guards. The switch was flipped, without warning, and the priest crossed himself. I found myself clutching the rosary in my pocket as I witnessed his body convulse. Within seconds, he was still, and my guard tapped my shoulder to lead me out. I was so stunned by his words and the rush of emotions that I didn't even process what had happened till I was in the hallway. Somewhere along the walk back, reality set in, and I collapsed to my knees and puked. Even writing this now, I'm still struggling to revisit these emotions. That said, I don't have a choice. I need to get this down and face it. I need to tell you about what he left me. When I was checking out at the front door and signing papers all over again, the man at the desk asked if I would like to sign for some belongings he'd left. I was the only next of kin that had shown up. The only anybody who'd shown up. And if I didn't want it, it had passed into storage.
He'll get auctioned off eventually. Might as well take it and make some cash. There are plenty of sickos who will collect these bastards' things. You want it?
I was reluctant at first, but agreed eventually. As fucked up as the logic is, the worst case scenario was that I ended up with a box of fire kindling for my next camping trip. Best case, I'd find an answer to all the crazy bullshit he'd said so far, but I doubted it. I signed for his few belongings, and they were about as meager as I expected. A singular brown box with his last name printed across the top. When I got to my car, his last words still bouncing around in my skull, I opened the box and started rooting around inside. There were no answers to my questions at first glance. There was a crucifix, a rosary, a Bible, a catechism, and a red scarf that looked like it had been knit by a fingerless grizzly bear. Great. Can't wait to type out that online listing. I was half ready to throw the entire thing out of my car and risk a littering fine outside a prison. But then my eyes were caught by something tucked in the pages of his catechism. Folded under everything else, almost inconspicuous, next to the numerous pages, was a letter. It was clearly more than a little beat up, but the writing on its cover was clear enough to make me freeze in my tracks.
But Frank, in case of the worst,
it said. I grabbed it out and shoved everything else to the side. I read the writing over again, making sure I wasn't dreaming, and then eagerly opened it. It said,
"The next conquest will be silent. There are stranger things on the earth than we could ever dream in nightmares. They're already here, Frank, and they're becoming more common."
His words were creeping up in the back of my mind once more.
"Behind our old house is a graveyard. You have a relative there, and it's there that I've buried the book. But you must be careful. Do not touch the thorns, and pray that the earth I salted when you were young has held strong. If the sapling has grown, you must not touch it. No matter what you see, do not touch it. Its fruit could be everywhere. It could be anyone. The things they do to your mind are nothing short of unholy. Trust no one, not even your parents. We were so close to the start of it all. I don't even know if your father is really my son anymore." I stared at that line for so long I thought the paper would catch on fire. "The book is buried beneath the broken cross. You'll need a trowel to get to it. I wish I could explain everything to you, and that you'd believe me outright. But I know that's a fool's mission. I can only lead to what will help you understand. You can do this. You need to do this. If you encounter one of the fruits, do not eat it. You'll know them by their mark." He signed it,
and below his name, there was a clipping from a newspaper. It was clearly a printout taken from some archive because the quality of the images and the text was shit, but not unreadable. It was some local gazette dated June 1932. The headline of the article and its brief sentence bore something that shocked me. Body found. Botanist dead from suicide. Beneath its large lettering was a tiny blurb that was barely a paragraph. Man was pulled from the sea, dead from drowning. He is believed to be John. I paused as I read my last name written on this page. That alone was enough to make me start to spin. But the next sentence almost drove me to insanity. Strange thorn-like protrusions were discovered sprouting from his entire body. Their cause is unknown. I heard it again.
Go home, Frank. There's something in the woods you need to see.
Guys, I don't know what the fuck any of this means. I'm staying in a motel off of the highway, and I don't know what to do. Lacey thinks that I'm just spending the night at a relative's place. She didn't ask any follow-up questions, so I think I'm off the hook. But it's hard for me to even process that lie right now. Every single rule of survival and nature is telling me to get back to the house with my fiance and to write all of this off as a crazed ramblings of a serial killer. Papa Joe is dead, and there's no obligation I have to listen to any of this. But I can't stop thinking about it. I've been doing some fact-checking and searching since I checked in here, and this newspaper clipping is legit. The man who died, the man with my old last name, boarded a transport vessel going out to sea, and then jumped into the Atlantic when land was out of sight. The captain was interviewed for the papers, and he said that the man left no personal belongings besides 2 books. A diary that contained a suicide note was left on his cabin desk, and a black leather-bound book, in German, presumably a Bible, was found in the trash bin, surrounded by paper ash. The book itself was unburnt. I don't want to believe any of this. I don't want to see anything more about this, but I keep hearing his pleas. I have to go home. I have to go back to his house and into the woods. There are too many coincidences for me to ignore. God help me. I can't help myself. I need to know who my grandfather really was. I need to know more about what drove him to do what he did. If anyone who knows me sees this, please don't tell Lacey. I wouldn't want her to worry. I'll let you all know what I find. That is all for this episode of Nightmare. Again, if you haven't done so, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And I look forward to joining you next week as we continue the story of Frank and his grandfather. And until next time, sleep well.